Welcome to Buffalo Game Day Recap. I'm Thad Brown along with AJ Feldman. I am here in the bowels of Lincoln Financial Field in the photographer's workroom because it is still raining outside as it has been all night long. I've been on the field for, I don't know, 125, 150 games or so. And this will go down as one of the top 10 or 12 wettest. Not the worst. I've definitely been in more rain and worse rain and thick snow that just soaks through everything. But this was up there. This was a continuous car wash on the sideline. And, it was an incredible game to watch. I would have enjoyed it a whole heck of a lot more if I had not gotten soaked by the end of the first half and then just had to sit in it for all the way deep into overtime. But you at home don't really care about how wet my sweatshirt is or my jacket is. You care about the fact that the Bills lost. And that is obviously the priority of what we'll talk about here. And, AJ, let's start with the initial reaction from this game. I'll sum it up this way. It was a heavyweight fight. The Bills belonged in the ring, but the other team landed the last uppercut.
Yeah, and that's kind of the story with this Buffalo Bills team. They're now 6-6 on the season. All 6 of those losses have come via 6 or fewer points. They had 2 of their games lost in overtime. Obviously, the Broncos was right at the buzzer. The Bengals game wasn't exactly as close, but it turned out a close score. Mac Jones drives on down the field. But this is just who the Bills are this year. They're in these games. I mean, I wouldn't say they're a bad team, of course. They're still good. They put up numbers. They put up yards. They put up EPA. They're expected to score a lot of points in these games, but they just aren't getting the wins. And, once again, it comes down to the margins, who makes the right plays at the right time, who takes advantage of the opportunities when you get them. And when it comes down to it, the Eagles did and the Bills didn't, and now they're at 6-6.
Yeah, 500 yards of total offense against the Eagles. Now, this defense is not great when it comes to preventing yards, but still, I mean, this is a 10-1 team now, and the Bills went into their house in bad weather and rolled it up on offense. Up and down the field, running and passing, more passing than rushing, but still, they had a lot of things working in this game. But at the end of the game, let's start there. It was the defense that ultimately let this team down. Now, look, the Eagles have a really good offense too. You have Jalen Hurts, you have a top 2 or 3 offensive line, even without Lane Johnson playing in this game. You have Devonta Smith, you have AJ Brown, you have DeAndre Swift. You got a really, this team is pretty sick when it comes to talent on offense. So they're going to get some plays. But that said, the Bills held them to 7 points in the first half. And I think the more concerning trend is this is what, the 3rd, 4th game now where this defense has let another team do whatever they had to do at the end of the game to win. And, although the Eagles are a really good offense, it happened against a really bad offense. Like you said, Mac Jones did it to this defense. So it's not about the caliber of the opponent. It is just something this defense does. And one point I tried to talk about with Micah Hyde and a couple other guys in the locker room afterward is that you have a variety of new starters on this team, guys who have not played, this many starter reps, Terrell Bernard, Terrell Dotson, Christian Benford. It's not the whole group, but it is a significant amount of people who would be playmakers, who have not been in this spot to close out games. And, perhaps it is something that needs to be learned. Now, of course, the Bills wouldn't have any of that because the next man up mentality, and I'm not even saying that's wrong. They might be right. But regardless, whatever it is that is preventing this team from finishing off games, it is certainly at an epidemic level because this is now, again, it doesn't matter the opponent, the situation, the game, the Bills defense is going to get beat at the end and they're going to lose games that way.
Yeah, their closer, quote unquote, that they brought in, Von Miller, still, of course, a shell of himself as he's trying to work back from this ACL recovery. And even the guys who do have the experience, Hyde, Poyer, Taron Johnson, things like that. Obviously, they have made plays before in their career, regular season games. They have stepped up in big moments before. But in the largest of moments, this is, still defenses that have let the Chiefs run up and down the field, in overtime. The Bengals game last year, all the way back to the Texans. So there still aren't, it's not a group of players that have stepped up in the past. And, when you add in the new guys who are young and inexperienced, and you can certainly, excuse some of their shortcomings, it's just not a group that, so far this season has come up when it's mattered the most. Zach Wilson has gone on drives in them to win games. Mac Jones, Russell Wilson, was left of him now. At least Jalen Hurts, the name doesn't sound as bad, but it's just a team that is not getting the plays when it needs to. It's not getting the turnovers when it needs to so far this season.
I'm not going to put the past playoff losses on this current defense. I think the personnel's too different to be able to draw a string from 2020 or 2021 to now. But this year, now look, they did finish off the Giants game barely. But yeah, no, exactly. Well, look, the Mac Jones beat him the next week, so maybe we should be applauding the fact they got Tyrod Taylor off the field when they had to. But look, there was a conversation last year about the Bills losing close games, and my take was always, look, these things happen. It'll end when it ends, and that might be as simple as that. If you continue to have opportunities, at some point these guys will make plays. But I want to go back to a point you made, about the older guys not being able to get it done. If you look at this defense now, who's going to close? Von Miller isn't there. We know that. Bernard, Dotson, Benford haven't been in that spot. Maybe now, look, you want younger guys to be able to figure it out, but okay, we'll excuse them for not having done it before. And then maybe, Poyer and Hyde, these are guys that we've talked about a lot this year, are well past 30. Maybe they don't have the gas in the tank to get it done, especially again, when you're on snaps 78, in the rain, in overtime. And the other thing I want to point out with that too is when you are still trying to fill in spots, when you're playing guys who you expected to be backups, it stretches everybody on a defense, especially a defense like Sean McDermott's, where they have to work together so well and so much in zone style stuff. I wonder if you just get worn out in a game like this, to where when you're, Micah Hyde trying to remind Terrell Bernard where he's got to be, or Dotson, or even with Rasul Douglas, who's a veteran but new to the team, explaining to him where to do where to go, what to do, how they need him to play. Does it wear teams out to where at the end, they're just out of gas to be able to make those plays?
Yeah, and the unit, which doesn't really need any communication and has other guys, of course, the front four, they had their moments in this game very early on. Leonard Floyd, he was taking advantage of Lane Johnson being out, but they only had 2 sacks in this game. One of them was basically kind of when they forced Jalen Hurts to run out of bounds for a 2-yard loss early in this game.
Not really a sack.
Yeah. End of the game, where's Leonard Floyd making the plays? Where's Ed Oliver making the plays? Where's Greg Rousseau, making the plays? AJ Epinesa. So the one unit that quote unquote should have the juice, they have guys able to rotate in there. They should be fresher. It's the Sean McDermott rotation. Once again, we're asking, where is this front four when they need him most?
A very, very fair question. That's the group, like you said, that is not as banged up as the back seven is. Now, before the defense gave up the game-winning drive in overtime, the Bills had a chance to win on an offense. And the play everybody is talking about was the incompletion, Josh Allen to Gabe Davis. Josh said, look, it's a cover 0 look, so that means that the Eagles were bringing a big blitz. I haven't had a chance to look at film, but he's saying that the Eagles had no safeties in coverage. It's just man-on-man across the board. And tell me if I'm wrong about that. Maybe it was. And then what happens is that Gabe Davis has what's called an option route, which means that Davis has A or B, maybe a C, and he and Josh have to read the defense the same way in order for the ball to go to the right spot. And Josh read Gabe to run an in-breaking route. He ran an out-breaking route. Therefore, it's incomplete. Therefore, the Bills had to kick a field goal. Now, I think the mere mortal would look at that and say, boy, you're 2 different people. You're reading a complex defense with an all-out blitz coming at the quarterback. Should the receiver and the quarterback be on the same page? Is it that easy, that simple? And I put that question to Gabe Davis. He said, yeah, we've been doing it for 4 years. And Davis, not directly speaking on his own, but this raises a problem that the Bills have with Josh Allen and Gabe Davis. This is not the first time they have not been on the same page. They are routinely not on the same page. The stupid, bad, intentional grounding call from a couple weeks ago against the Broncos was a play where they're not on the same page. This happens all the time with them. So if Gabe Davis is saying it should be simple, and I think it should be, I think he's right. Well, this is a big problem with a receiver who's supposed to be your number 2, who's been here for 3-4 years with the same quarterback. I guess the coordinators have changed a couple times, but still, they should be able to figure this out. And, as good as the offense played, and we're going to lay a ton of flowers down for these guys before we're done with the show tonight, it's still the single mistakes that are blowing things up and causing losses.
Yeah, looking at the play right now, there was no safety. You had 4 guys running routes, basically 4 guys defending them. And it seems like, what Gabe was seeing is that he's got the defender more on his inside leverage as he's breaking up the field. So he's probably thinking that, outside towards that pine line is going to be more open. Josh, probably thought that he had, enough speed going forward to just keep on going straight. But yeah, it's just another miscommunication. we can laugh about the intentional grounding penalty of a couple weeks ago. That was a play where the communication was so bad that the refs called the flag that they probably shouldn't have. So,
right.
So that's, you know, the types of things we're dealing with Gabe Davis and Josh Allen.
Disappointing for sure, and it ruined, you know, what was a really good offensive game. Like we said, 500 yards of total offense, and I was incredibly impressed by Josh Allen. I thought this might have been his best game ever. What he was doing to, you know, I don't want to say single-handedly because there were a lot of guys who made plays, and the run game was good in important spots, but almost single-handedly, you know, Josh Allen keeping drives alive. I mean, I don't know. It feels like every 3rd and long was either Josh Allen making a play out of structure or the structure being Josh run the ball. And for him to continue to do that on the road, again, this is not a great defense in terms of certainly not against the pass and not, you know, allowing yards. But regardless, this is a 10-1 team. So the defense can't be that bad. And for Allen to succeed over and over and over and over and over, and to keep the Bills in it, keep having answers, keep responding what the Eagles had, you know, again, I thought it was maybe his best game ever. And the quarterback on the other side, Jalen Hurts, was the hero of this game. He led a game-winning drive in overtime, scored the game-winning touchdown, led a game-tying drive at the end of the regulation. He was the hero of this game, and Josh Allen outplayed him by a mile, in my opinion. So I know it's a loss, and Josh Allen was down, and the Bills are down, but they got a ridiculous game out of their quarterback in this one.
Yeah, he played really good in this one. I think the play that kind of, you know, encapsulates that the most is the touchdown at the end of the first half where he you know, throws a rocket into basically 3 guys around Stephon Diggs to just the one spot where he was. It was that, you know, a typical Josh Allen, no, yes play where he had no business trying that throw. Maybe only a handful of other quarterbacks in the league, you know, even attempt that. And he just makes it look, you know, easy out there. A lot of plays where he's, you know, fighting off defenders, breaking off of sacks, throwing it to the outside, difficult throws, high difficulty throws. It was just a really good game from him. You know, the one interception he had, it did set up the Philly touchdown. You know, Carl Jones, our coworker, talked about it on Twitter. He said it was just really good disguise coverage by the Eagles. There's really no reason to think that that's the type of play, type of coverage, maneuver that the cornerback's going to take there. So, you know, yes, it's a play that, you know, it seems like basically once a week, Josh Allen's throwing a pick where he doesn't see what the defense is doing, but it seems like it was just a really strong play by the defense. As we say, the defense gets paid too. But no, Allen was just ridiculous. And whether or not it was, you know, the new play caller, he was certainly running more than he's done throughout the entire season. 9 carries for 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. Allen was asked about it in the post game afterwards. He said this wasn't really the game plan. It was just kind of how things, you know, played out today. So I don't know if there was really a concerted effort to get him more involved, but certainly when he was running, you know, it was just a reminder of how good he can be when that type of his game is activated.
I think most of the runs were scrambles, you know, but I thought the called runs were in great spots. The touchdown early, you know, it felt like the moment he takes off, I'm on the field. I don't see what's in front of him. I'm just watching him through my camera. And the moment he starts running forward, I'm like, this is a touchdown. You know, you knew. There was a 3rd down call later where, again, just a really smart spot. So although I don't think they ran a lot of called stuff, like you didn't see the quarterback sweep, you know, that will occasionally get run by the Bills. So I think most of it was scramble, but what was called was pretty good. And look, I think Joe Brady has been the right move, certainly through 2 weeks. Again, I don't know how much credit you want to give. Is it 20%, 40%? Who knows? But the change has certainly made a difference. And there are more success, more, you know, smart things. You know, I wondered the number of times they succeeded on a run in the go-ahead touchdown in the 4th quarter kind of made me laugh because I thought that if you had gone into a vacuum and told a Bills fan, okay, the Bills are down by a touchdown and Josh is playing bonkers, and we're going to run it like 4 times to start the game-winning drive, people would have been like, you know, throwing things off their TV, anger at the offensive coordinator, especially with still Ken Dorsey. But it worked. It worked. You know, they were executing. And that's the thing. That last drive, that go-ahead touchdown drive, was just the offense. They didn't do anything crazy there. It was just the offense executing over and over and over. And that has been the problem with this offense. They just can't do it continuously enough. And they're doing a whole lot more. There were some mistakes, wasn't perfect, but I think easily we can say that the change to Joe Brady, you know, I mean, last week was 1 game against the Jets. Now it's 2 games in a row. Sure, they're going to face 2 really tough defenses coming up after the bye. But for now, you got to say that it's been the right move, and it has made a tangible difference.
Yeah, you talk about the play calling on that drive being so run heavy. Obviously, it was good because it worked. But you look at the 2 drives prior, it's the Josh Allen interception, and then they go a first down and then a 3-and-out after that. So it's the type of, situation where, they've now had 2 unsuccessful drives. Allen's thrown the pick, he got sacked. So slowing things down, running the ball, at that point in the game, the field is sloppy. So, you get your offensive linemen running upfield. It's never a bad idea. And, and it paid off, especially on that touchdown to Gabe Davis, where, you talk about the run setting up the play action, you can file that away and, tweet it later when you need to reference an example like that.
Yeah, and it's the offensive coordinator adjusting too. Like you said, the last couple of drives, what they were doing wasn't working, and they went to something different, and it did work. And then they were able to call something off of what was working to score the touchdown. Just good coordinating. That's what you want to see. Joe Brady's not a genius, but the fact the Bills are getting, reasonably good work from that spot, I think has made a pretty big difference. Let's continue with the coaching. Sean McDermott, end of the regulation, 20 seconds to go, 1 timeout, ball on the 25. I think in general, average, you take all football teams in the history of the world, there's probably more bad that's going to happen than good if you try to press there. For the Bills, with Josh Allen, especially, playing at ludicrous speed, I think that was a spot where I was surprised they took the knee. You had a timeout. You throw 125-yarder over the middle. Yeah, you'd probably spend the timeout there, but now it's 10, 11 seconds and you're close to field goal range. I was surprised he didn't take a swing there.
No, and you think about what they did against the Lions on Thanksgiving last year.
Exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Yeah, it was that same exact scenario. But I definitely would have liked to see them go for it with 20 seconds on the clock with 1 timeout. The bigger gripe is the timeouts that they wasted on the drive prior. They call a timeout on 3rd and long to get their defense in the right situation, a classic Sean McDermott timeout, which you can kind of defend that more. You want to make sure your guy is in the right spot. You can defend that one. But to call a timeout before he tries the field goal, you look at all the statistics, the study, I think they basically all say that icing the kicker with a timeout is negligible in how it impacts whether or not he makes or misses the kick. So just waste that timeout when you could have used that to go down the field, I think is just an indefensible decision, the second it was made.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. That's a very fair point. There's no reason to spend the time out there. It like you said, dumb to even try. And look, Sean McDermott wasn't perfect in this game. I know that there's a quote running around that you pointed out, before we started talking about this, that Jordan Mailata from the Eagles on the game-winning touchdown run said they got a look from the Bills where they knew at the snap it was going to be a touchdown, and clearly, Hurts was not troubled at all scoring on that run. And for people who are frustrated with that, look, the other team, as you said, they get paid too, and this is a 10-1 team with a really talented offense, a varied offense that can do a lot of different things. They're going to hit some that are right, and they got a call correct on that one. But when the Bills lose a game, the head coach isn't perfect, and I think that was certainly the situation here. And I think there's a couple reasonable things to gripe about. Now gripes. I know people at home are mad about the officiating. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to one more thing about Sean McDermott. James Cook has the drop, which probably would have been a touchdown there in the first half. He doesn't play the next drive. I don't believe he plays the next drive. This is once again a situation where, he's been sitting his running back for making a mistake, whether it's a fumble or, a drop here, where Cook seems to have a much shorter leash. And, he turned out to be effective later in the game. But this is once again a time where, McDermott's taking one of his most explosive, dynamic players off the field to, make him think about what he did. I don't know if, that's really a means to success. I'd probably rather have James Cook than Latavius Murray and Ty Johnson, even though both were good in their spots.
Yeah, that's the thing with me. I'm not going to get that upset about it in this game. Cook, none of the 3 running backs averaged better than 3.3 a carry. Cook obviously was a weapon out of the backfield, but his hands have been, to me, a little bit questionable all year. This is not a guy that you can, always depend on to make that catch. So, look, I think I'm done with if Sean McDermott is trying to send James Cook a lesson with that stuff, that's stupid. But I think there's a good argument that can be made for, the 3 running backs, all 3 of them were, somewhat equally effective in this game. And having James Cook out does not mean your offense suddenly comes to a stop. They didn't run it great top to bottom. And I think they can use the other 2 guys even with Cook out. All right, hitting the penalties now. We good?
Yeah, let's do some penalty talk.
Now, on the field, I was not dialed into every missed call that people are upset about. The horse collar on Josh Allen, I get it. I was actually a little more surprised they stuck with the intentional grounding call, because I thought, I've seen that call. I mean, look, the idea of that call is to allow the quarterback to have an out so they don't have to take punishment. And yeah, Josh Allen threw the ball a grand total of 7 inches, but Gabe Davis was in the area, so I was surprised they called that grounding. The horse collar argument, I want to watch it again. I know he got swung around by his jersey. I know people think it looked pretty obvious. I didn't see it that way on the field, but I don't have a great view of that when I'm on the wrong side.
Yeah, I didn't disagree with, I didn't think it was, let me make sure I say this correctly. I'm not going to defend the no call. I didn't feel that strongly, but I can certainly see the situation because, as Hochuli pointed out in the post-game interview, he was really brought down from his front. So it's not like he was dragged behind. And you can almost make a case that, his arm, his hand, the defender's hand was on the back of his jersey, kind of near that rip point, but it never really got in there. It didn't seem like there was a strong motion. So I didn't feel strongly enough to tweet about it or make the point, but I didn't think it was, the worst call in the world where seemingly everybody else thought it was as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's kind of what I thought happened, that he started on the front of the jersey and then kind of wrapped around. Well, the intentional grounding, I disagree with.
Yeah,
again,
I agreed.
Gabe Davis is there. There were a couple other. There was an early holding penalty on Connor McGovern I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah.
But beyond that, and look, the Bills, as they should, didn't really blame the officiating. Sean McDermott said you got to, take the officiating out of it, meaning you got to kind of play better than the officiating, and that's how it goes. I mean, if you want to blame officials for this, then you're missing the boat on. The Bills had a miscommunication late. Their kicker missed 2 kicks, which we haven't got to yet, which I think is a monster part of why this game went the way it went. The Bills had opportunities. I mean, they had a deflected interception and they recovered the only fumble in this game. So they had things bounce their way. This is not some grand conspiracy against them. And even I know people at home or on social media are wondering about Shawn Hochuli himself, and you have the easy way to dispute that, right?
Yeah. So there's this, it's a Warren Sharp tweet that's going up and retweeted a bunch of times that Shawn Hochuli games where he officiates the Eagles under Nick Sirianni, they are now 5-0 in those games in which Hochuli is the referee for the Eagles. That tweet leaves out the game that Hochuli refereed before Sirianni came in when the Eagles lost that game. So I don't know if it's a Nick Sirianni thing, but it's certainly not a full-on Eagles bias. And the other thing, just looking at the numbers in general, granted, there's no calls, there's yes calls, there's a bunch of things that go into influencing ref's influence. But if you add up the numbers prior to today's game, Hochuli's crews have called 29 penalties on the Eagles and 28 penalties on their opponents. So it's not even in their opponent's favored. It's barely favored the Eagles. So not a grand discrepancy. And even when you include this Bills game and all the penalties that went against the Bills, this, that, and the other, more yards of penalties were called against the Eagles versus their opponents, even when you include this game. So it's not some, grand tilted scheme. It's a sample size of 5 or 6 games. Random things happen in short amounts of time. So to think it's some sort of, Scott Foster, Chris Paul conspiracy, I think is reaching a lot.
Well, keep in mind too, Nick Sirianni right now is 33-12 as a head coach. So you know what? I bet a lot of refs have positive records working Nick Sirianni, or Nick Sirianni and the Eagles have really good records with every ref. So yeah, I'm not going to buy into the ref stuff. I mean, people want to look for something to blame when their team is coming up short, and that's the problem. The Bills keep, coming up short. And even though, this team, I think, played a whole lot better, I think there's a lot of positives to take from this game. Now they're 6-6, and you're staring down the barrel of Chiefs and Cowboys, and you're going to have 2 more swings at getting that big win you need to really get back on track to make the playoffs. I think 10 wins gets the Bills in. But you had an opportunity in this game with a lead late, with a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and could not finish this team off. And right back to where we started this is who the Bills are right now, even though they looked a whole lot better doing it in this game.
Yeah. We always talk schedule at the end of this, and we're getting down to the nitty gritty where there's only 5 games left. They're probably going to have to go 4-1. You look at the schedule, they probably got to take one of those 2 big games against the Chiefs and the Cowboys. You take care of business against the Chargers and Patriots, and it feels like a weird thing to say, but at this point, you hope that the Dolphins are resting starters because they're by and far away the lead in the division, and they can't catch, the Eagle, the Ravens or the Chiefs or things like that, and maybe you catch a break in that regards. But no, it's crunch time, and other teams keep winning. The Steelers got to win today, and they're just running out of time.
Yeah, and this, like I said, this was a great game between two heavyweight teams. The problem is one team's record doesn't say they're a heavyweight, and there are good reasons for that. Injuries, lack of ability to finish drives on offense, some bad breaks, things that happen. But this is who the Bills are right now. And I think that if you're a fan, you feel good about the fact that, well, if you can do this against the Eagles, the other teams they had trouble against span the gamut of ability. Jags, Patriots, Jets, week one. At least when we're talking about winning time and playoff making time, the Bills prove they can do everything they need to do against a team like the Eagles, obviously except win. So you can spin that positive if you want, but at 6-6, like there's nowhere else I can go with that. They're running out of games. You want to spin it positive, fine. You got to start making plays. And I think unless Von Miller takes a big step, I think the final straw for this team is going to be the fact they just don't have enough dudes on defense to finish off whatever the offense has started.
Yeah, the reason why the Bills missed the playoffs, if they missed the playoffs, won't be this game. It'll be the fact that they lost to the Broncos when they should have just had 11 men on the field. Yeah. The fact that they lost to a quarterback who just got benched for Tim Boyle, and the fact that they lost to a quarterback who led a game-winning drive who just got benched for Bailey Zappi. So that's the season in a nutshell, is the inexcusable losses.
That is the perfect way to close this down. All right. So like we said, the Bills get a week off. So do we, by the way. And then they will head to Kansas City for a game with the Chiefs, a game they can win. The Raiders had a big lead on the Chiefs today. If Aiden O'Connell can be in front of the Chiefs, so can Josh Allen. But it'll be like what they've had the last few weeks. They'll have a chance. You got to finish it off at the end, and they have not done enough of that. As always, you can see Buffalo Game Day Recap on RochesterFirst.com, on YouTube. You can also listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. We will see you again in 2 weeks from Arrowhead Stadium, whatever GEHA. They've got some sponsorship. It's always going to be Arrowhead to me. But I'll be back there again. AJ Feldman will be with me, and that's when you will see and hear Buffalo Game Day Recap once again. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you in a couple weeks.